most cash crops, most hay crops now are responding to sulfur because Inco has done such a wonderful job of scrubbing their super stack.
Before we put the cattle out here the first time, I wasn't overly impressed with how much of it caught, but I think we kind of overgrazed this the first time, and it does help get some of that stuff established because there's lots of spots as you walk across. You can see some strips in the drill runs where we had, like, I'm guessing just some species that came through a bit more. Maybe the grass wasn't mixed in very well. Some strips that were pretty well non-existent. And now there's clover and trefoil coming through all those strips, whereas the spring when we first grazed this,
it was thin, yeah. And this has also been fertilized, so part of the discussion was to how to improve carrying capacity. We manage our pastures similar to the way we manage our hay fields, so this has been fertilized, and Nick did this just the other day. So we do it either after the first grazing cycle or the second grazing cycle. In this case, this one was done just before the second grazing cycle. The other ones were just done since the steers have come off that strip down there. But because of the legume content, this got a lower nitrogen, higher phosphorus, higher potash blend. Our other pastures will get like a 2:1:2 blend with some sulfur. We put sulfur in all of our blends now. There's everything, all grass. Most cash crops, most hay crops now are responding to sulfur because Inco has done such a wonderful job of scrubbing their super stack that we don't get enough sulfur in the rain now anymore. Good thing, but now we have to fertilize it. We just fertilize once. Just once, yeah.
But we typically go like time our fertilizer application in the summertime because we don't want to encourage any more growth in the spring. Yeah.
Because our lowest pasture supply time is we're usually now as we're waiting for hay fields to come on stream perhaps, or dealing with dry weather, whatever the case may be. We do not want more growth in May and June. We want it now, so we fertilize later. We do not fertilize when we fertilize our hay crops. We fertilize it after the first rotation or after the second rotation. I suppose it depends on the situation they're coming into. If you're coming into a situation where even your spring growth looks tough, then I can see that being a recommendation. But historically, we've struggled with staying ahead of our grass. Yeah. Like even here, you can see all the mature material by the time, because this was the last piece they grazed on the first rotation. So I struggle with the date that it would have been. I have to go through my text messages. So obviously we had mature stuff here already by the time they got here the first time. And so this isn't regrowth just from grazing, this will be regrowth from trampling as well.
For utilization of the sulfur in our blends, you'd want it out first thing in the spring.
Yeah.
But we don't want much nitrogen uptake first thing in the spring, otherwise we end up with way more growth.
Yeah. And the P and the K technically is best spread later in the season, but we're not going to necessarily go over all the acres twice. So we put a blend out with nitrogen in it. So a lot of it's a compromise to kind of hit the high points and get done what needs doing, but the timing's not necessarily always perfect.
The answer comes down to that inventory management. On hay, probably you can handle it because you didn't harvest it mechanically. So yes, that could boost yield in a grass hay. But on a pasture, are you hurting for grass in that first rotation? The answer is usually no. But if they're trying to balance that, okay, like the first rotation's fine, but by second rotation it's like, oh no, I don't know if I'm gonna run out. Then, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? You can go, okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of nitrogen early spring to just this paddock or these 3 paddocks or whatever. So often we get into the, okay, I've decided I'm gonna fertilize, I'm gonna do everything, right? Because you've got to get her anyway, let's just get her done. But it doesn't have to be all or nothing. But very often, yeah, that first rotation is not the point where you need more grass, and nitrogen very easily puts on yield. And so that one can be a little bit tricky.
And I think not only staggering the timing perhaps, but with new technology now, we have the ability to use different nitrogen sources. So we'll have used ammonium sulfate exclusively, I think, in this last blend, was straight ammonium sulfate. And so that nitrogen is quick release nitrogen from the ammonium portion of it. But if you're wanting to have a later release, like you could use a urea with a coating on it, like some sort of inhibitor, so that you get later release. So you could blend and apply all at the same time to have immediate nitrogen and slower release nitrogen. So you wouldn't have to come back in a second time perhaps. So that kind of technology is fairly new with, now Emily, there's inhibitors and stabilizers. That's the word that wasn't coming to mind. So they target different things on the nitrogen breakdown of urea. So we can play with urea, because urea typically is not ideal for just leaving on the surface, depending on the weather, especially when we're coming in after first grazing cycle or second grazing cycle. We're getting into temperatures and moisture situations where urea will volatilize. So you can put these inhibitors and stabilizers on that will protect your nitrogen and slow down the release of it, and still blend with something like ammonium sulfate, that has a quick release. So you can manage your nitrogen just with the products that you're purchasing.
So that key temperature for urea volatilization is 18 degrees. If your temperature is 18 degrees or hotter, you're losing nitrogen to the air. It's not getting into your crop feed.
Yeah,
if we're not incorporating it because we have perennial forages that we're trying to feed.
So if there's no rain in the forecast, within like a day or two of application, an inhibitor or a stabilizer, absolutely. And it's easy to do. Like at the Agromart, they just, as they're blending your blend, they just pour it in and coat the product, and away you go. It's a nice pretty blue.
That's
or green.
Yes. If you decide to do that, talk to your fertilizer supplier about what you need it to do, because inhibitors and stabilizers do different things. They work in different ways. And I need to go talk to our soil fertility specialist again to refresh my memory which one does what. Some of them are slow release in the soil, and some of them are preventing that volatilization.
I think like 3 to 4 weeks. It's not just a few days. Yeah, no.
But that's when it's
temperatures are right.
Temperatures are right, and it's in the soil.
Like for pasture scenarios, I think you'd always have to use both.
Yes.
So you don't get volatilization and you get the slow release. You'll need 2 products, not just one. If you want that extended release of nitrogen. If you're just worried about the volatilization, you just need one of the products.
If you're trying to spread before rain and you end up getting like a big rain, it helps stabilize it in the soil too.
Well,
so that you're not getting leaching.
Those all sound like criteria that is working in your favor, right? You've got moisture to get that nitrogen in the soil. You've got temperatures that mean your urea is not instantly going to go gone. Yeah, that all looks like it's working in your favor, but double check with the fertilizer guys, because they know these products and they know how that works far better than I do. This might be one of those moments, though, where, like, normally these kinds of conversations are happening assuming the audience is green farmers with big equipment down south, right? Well, we already talked about, we're working with smaller acres. And, I've never had the conversation of, do you apply in the evening or early at night to get...
And what does that do for you?
Yeah. Like, in the kinds of situations, like, that we're working in...
yes.
Yeah.
That may be more practical than whatever some grain farmer we don't care about down south is doing.
Yeah, right, yeah.